Amplify.ai. And our platform is all about customer engagement superpowers. But when COVID-19 hit, we actually as a team decided to take a slightly different approach. And what we ended up doing was actually decided that we were going to move our platform towards citizen engagement superpowers and see if we could, as a startup, help governments, NGOs, other organizations get information out about the pandemic. So, as we all know, COVID-19 created unprecedented challenges, right? There's lots of conflicting messages that were coming from the national level, the state level, the local level. There's a lot of frustration, distribution of everything from, what hospital to go to, where can you get tested, general healthcare information. With the shelter-in-place orders, there's a lot of confusion as to, what happens when, and then the economic impact, right? Including things like economic assistance. There's a lot of challenges in getting this information out. And we also found that there was a call to citizen action, for volunteers, for donations, that wasn't really getting heard very well. Now, we kind of looked at this from the other opportunity, which is what kind of new opportunities does this create for governments, for NGOs, for state and local governments and organizations, and even public officials. And using the pandemic and the need to educate these citizens is an opportunity to actually lead the citizens through this tumultuous time. Engaging a diverse population where they were, as opposed to trying to get them to go to a website or sign up for an SMS alert. It was also an opportunity for many governments that really didn't have any kind of e-government infrastructure to set that up, and to leverage cutting edge AI ML technology to really create a lasting citizen engagement model. So we brought our platform to bear here, which is really, our AI foundation is all about NLP, ML for personalization, looking at a bunch of engagement data and using that to optimize re-engagement. Our go-to-market usually comes to life in two forms, either through a branded virtual assistant or a conversational ad experience. So what we saw here as an opportunity was to connect citizens where they were, right? Find them on Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, via SMS, on the web, Twitter, even platforms like Google Messages. And really create a highly effective, interactive ladder of engagement so that you could do frictionless signups, issue-based engagement, be able to make people aware of events and opportunities to engage, volunteering, and then having this massive platform that you could do A/B testing to see what kind of messaging resonated better with the public. And then lastly, what we've seen is the ability to personalize that experience to drive persuasion, to whether it's wearing masks or getting tested. So this opportunity, if you think about all the noise around COVID, it was the ability to really bring conversational AI to engage citizens in a game-changing way. Also, because of all of these conversations, be able to develop some deep insights into how were citizens feeling about this. What was the general sentiment? How did that change over time? What kind of intents were we able to decipher, and ultimately, what are the issues that the public was really concerned with. We also created an infrastructure to really take a digital pulse of the state of, whether it's a country or just a geographic portion of that, and being able to distill it down to what really mattered to those local organizations. And then lastly, the ability to create really fine-grained audience segments and tailor that re-engagement and messaging to appeal to these constituent groups. So to tell you a little bit about how we achieve this, at the core of our system is a conversational AI system that really can be brought into every aspect of the customer journey, or in this case, the citizen journey. So whether it's social, the web, in-app, search, we're plugged into pretty much all the open APIs that are able to engage consumers. Just to give you a little bit of background on us, we've driven more than 10 billion engagements with more than 500 million consumers around the world. So let's dive into some examples of how this really worked. One of the largest organizations we worked with was the government of India and the Ministry of Health. They have a e-government infrastructure called MyGov with about 800 million people that have registered with that solution. So we started with a very simple conversational AI experience called the Sati bot. And that was available on their website. It's still there. You can see it if you go to mygov.in. But it's a very simple conversational, web-based conversational experience. We then expanded it to social and to search, and I'll go into some examples of this. There are about 40,000 people that use this service every single day, every single hour. And we've seen, like in just the web experience, 7 million monthly unique users that interact with it. And it's a single AI instance that can be served in any of these channels: Facebook, SMS, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Google Messages, on the web, on search. So here's simple ways that they work, right? Within a Facebook experience, they were posting promotions for it. You could click on this and fall right into the conversational experience. You could send this Facebook presence, the message to get started. This worked seamlessly on desktop and mobile, but here's an example of how you'd get started, right? It identified you by name. It started to create a dialogue and let you engage in Hindi or English. Additional things that we could do, we could take comments and reactions and be able to engage comments, for example, with a direct automated message. So if you said something on a post, that was an opportunity to bring people into the conversation. If you just did a like, for example, we could do some retargeting of those users for follow-on engagement. The same thing could happen in Instagram, much like what I just showed you on Facebook. Because of the capability to link to this, it was easy to promote this through platforms that didn't really support conversational experiences, like a Twitter, but you could promote it. And in fact, the Prime Minister of India tweeted about this, and in a single day, there were several million people that clicked on this link and got into the experience. Another exciting area that we think really is is a good indication of where search is going in the future is working with Google. We were able to deploy this solution again for the government of India, but now with search results, being able to create a message interaction. So you might search for a food and shelter location. The search results give you this ability to message that individual shelter, get real-time information. So 12,000 locations around the country providing real-time interactive information to the citizenry. There's lots of different ways that we can bring this to light, right? So a simple icon that says, message the infrastructure, being able to reuse it at sort of the local government level, the same infrastructure, but now appealing to a different constituent with maybe some more localized needs. And of course, being able to leverage SEO. So being able to buy keyword-driven campaigns that could promote these kind of services. Shifting gears, we worked with a lot of the press and media. So this is an example in India where you saw this little COVID icon, like a chat icon. And if you clicked on it, it turned into an interactive solution so that you could get information that was relevant to you in a highly customized, personalized way. Another example here, and now moving away from government, was TiVo, the electronics manufacturer, came to us because they, all of their support is done in a call center with 300 people. When COVID broke, only about 30 of them, only about 10% of them could come to work. In about 2 weeks, we built them an automated solution that 90% of the trouble tickets that were generated for the Stream 4K product was actually handled through our automated AI system. Only 10% went to a human agent. So it's a great example of what COVID's teaching us, that we could efficiently use AI ML technology to drive better scale and better solutions for customer support. This is also related, we've been working with a lot of political campaigns, particularly here in the United States. And the latest manifestation of this is doing digital door knocking, where, with COVID, the traditional canvassing doesn't really work. We've been able to deliver over $1 million of small donations to these campaigns a month, engaging over 70 million voters just in this single campaign season. And then my last example is this is a bank, it's the State Bank of India, the largest bank in India, that uses Facebook to drive awareness that you can bank from home. This is a country where, even though electronic banking exists, a lot of people still like the face-to-face brick and mortar type of experience. So it's both educating the public and making them aware and more comfortable about doing electronic banking from home. So I wanted to wrap with how is this approach different? First and foremost, it's highly interactive. It's rich media. It's got images, video, audio. It's a type and tap experience. It's dynamically multilingual with highly trained NLP infrastructure, and it's stateful, so that if you stop a conversation and start up an hour, a day, or a week later, you can start back up where you left. Our systems have proved to deliver very actionable insights. Conversational data gathering can help build very, very powerful profiles. You can drive lots of custom variables around that. with deep personalization, and really being able to program this system without writing any code. And lastly, the real value here is full automation that gives us hyperscale, with the ability to do a live handoff to a call center or a live agent when needed, being able to redirect phone conversations like an IVR into a messaging conversation, and ultimately really boosts productivity and efficiency of the human agents that in a crisis like this are completely underwater, and it allows them to operate in a social distancing way. So that's my story. I hope you got some value out of it. I am happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, Mahi, we have one question. What protection protocol is needed to avoid abuse or misuse or manipulation by certain individuals?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that we encounter in our work every day, working with political campaigns, is that there are literally thousands of bots that attack this infrastructure, whether it's a web-based chat system or even more pronounced on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. So we have built profiling mechanisms that can very easily identify these bots and limit the amount of disruption that they can make. And many service providers, including Facebook, have taken note of that, and allowed organizations to actually ban certain accounts that are trying to attack their infrastructure. So that's an important part. That tends to be more organized. But even at the individual level, the power of machine-driven experiences are that that most of these individuals or organizations leave a digital footprint, and it's very different than if they were calling and talking to someone. It's much easier to identify and take action in a digital conversation than a voice or pure sort of chat experience.
Okay, so just we'll wait for a couple of more minutes if any questions. So anything else for ending comments like that? Yeah, Mahi, we have 10 more minutes to end your session. If you have something to share with best practices, or you can just give out some best practices.
Sure. Let me go back to the presentation to talk a little bit about one of the unique things that we found in working with government organizations. In many ways, in many ways, a lot of institutions, public institutions, they've set up a web infrastructure, but what they typically don't have is a lot of organized engagement around social media or even search, because they tend to look at those as being much more commercial. They tend to think of them as engines that require a lot of spend to drive engagement. But what we've seen is that you could leverage these platforms, and from a PR standpoint, companies like both Google and Facebook are happy to help organizations that are battling things like the pandemic or a health crisis or an emergency, that they will bring parts of their platform to this type of opportunity without these organizations having to spend a lot of money on advertising. And what we've seen is that there are best practices around how to create social following and to leverage that social following to create more visibility on these social media platforms. And in search, being able to, without having to spend a lot of money on SEO, being able to be really smart about how you leverage things like Google My Business settings, how to wire up automation and chat and conversational AI into those experiences, which can be profoundly productive without much of an investment. So we're quite optimistic that these governments and NGOs who's gotten a taste of what's possible is really leaning into these opportunities, particularly around these citizen engagement opportunities.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. One question about Amplify.ai. You said that you were able to handle donations within the US, in this case called political donations. One of the problems brought up by COVID, because of the transportation being blocked, air transportation, mail service was disrupted across the countries, and also dealing with banks in India became very difficult. Banks that are used to somebody coming and sitting in front of you, and you can't do that if you're in another country. Are you able to handle financial transactions between countries?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would tell you that we don't have any specific experience with driving a lot of high volume transactions across borders, but I would tell you that like our work with SBI, with HDFC, with several other financial services institutions, is that there's a lot of money being moved in electronic banking from the broader, let's call it the diaspora of Indians that live all over the world, and there is some special consideration that needs to happen at the account setup level. But SBI, for example, when they created this outreach, it wasn't just focused on people in India. It was actually targeted and sent out all over the world for people that do banking with them to facilitate more electronic banking than the typical face-to-face.
Okay, thank you. So are you involved in someone from here, from US, dealing with, say, SBI?
I think there are certainly individuals that we facilitated, in transacting with SBI. How we do that is that our platform is a conversational platform that can connect up to any backend system. through a JSON interface. It's all protected with SSL. So through a conversational experience, you absolutely can authenticate to a bank, be able to create a secure session and facilitate a transaction. And yes, we have people all over the world using our system to achieve that.
How do we communicate with you? Do you have have you given you an email address somewhere?
Yeah, so you can reach me just at Mahi, M-A-H-I, at Amplify.ai.
Oh, that's very good. Mahi at Amplify.ai.
Yes.
Thank you.